can open up the window so everybody can see.
Thank you so much.
Alright, thank you guys for joining me here in the Shark Ray Bay Theater. My name is Jordan and I'm an exhibits interpreter here at the aquarium, which means you'll typically find me behind the touch tanks interpreting those exhibits, but otherwise we also do these presentations. This presentation will be focused on our sharks because it is Shark Summer, and so we want to celebrate our sharks this year. You will see throughout the aquarium that we have these signs, just like the one up here in the front of this cart. That means you're going to learn a new shark fact today. So this presentation will be about 15 minutes long, and there'll be time for questions at the end. But we're going to focus on our sharks, like I said, so let's start with some introductions. So here in the shark tank, we have 4 different species of sharks. The largest one's back there in the back right corner is a sand tiger shark. We have 2 sand tiger sharks in this tank. Their names are Grady and Bailey. These guys are a part of a species survival plan, which means that they are a breeding pair, or at least we're hoping they will be. And these guys are about 7 and 8 feet long currently, and that's about max size for the sand tigers. They're well known for their toothy grin. Their teeth stick out a little more than other sharks do. Next we have in view, we have our black-tip reef sharks swimming up there at the top. The black-tip reef sharks are about 4 feet long currently, and they are full grown. That's as big as they're going to get. The black-tips, we have 2 males. Their names are Bruiser and Cruiser. And they typically are swimming at the surface of the water. The easiest way to tell them apart is that they have black tips on all of those fins. Next, oh look, perfect. This is one of our zebra sharks. They don't always join us for the presentation, which is great that they're joining us today. But the zebra sharks, we have 2 of them. Their names are Pico and Queso. And the zebra sharks, they are also both males. They're typically found just sitting at the bottom of the tank. They have a favorite spot over in the first tunnel that you'll see later on, and they just sit there. And we're going to talk a little bit more about them later on. But they are called zebra sharks because when they're babies, they have big black stripes. So we have 2 adults, that's why they don't have those stripes anymore. They grow out of them. And then we have one of our shark rays here. Shark rays are not technically sharks, so we're not going to focus on that today. But they are more closely related to the stingrays. We have 2 shark rays in this tank. Their names are Scooter and Shan. And then I'm not seeing our 4th species of shark at the moment, but hopefully they'll come by later on. We also have sandbar sharks in this tank. So the sandbar sharks, they're about the same size as those black-tip reef sharks that are swimming above us right now. They're about 4 to 5 feet long currently, but they can grow to 8 feet long. The easiest way to tell the black tips apart from the sandbar sharks is the black tips, again, have all those black tips on all their fins. The sandbar sharks are completely gray. So that's an easier way to tell them apart. But like I mentioned, we're going to focus on sharks today. We're going to talk all about them, what makes a shark, what compares them to other fish in the ocean. And so I have a question for you guys. What do you think qualifies a shark as a shark? I heard cartilage, that's a good one. Heard teeth, another good one. What was that? What they eat, yes, that's a good one as well. Anybody else have any? Fins, that's another good one. We're going to actually start with fins. So we're going to label 5 different things that make a shark a shark. Like I said, starting with the fins. So I have this little diagram up here. So the shark fins, they all have this basic setup. They all have the dorsal fins, the caudal fins, the pectoral fins. It might look a little different depending on the shark, especially you guys might be familiar with nurse sharks. They don't have that big tall fin right at the front of their body. Their dorsal fin moves down closer to their tail. But they all have them somewhere on their body. And so we're going to start with that dorsal fin. It's a very important fin. It's one of the first fins you're going to see on a shark. If you're out in the ocean, you're going to see that fin pop up if they're swimming at the surface of the water. We also are going to talk about that pelvic fin and anal fin. So the dorsal fin and then the pelvic fin and anal fin, those all help stabilize the shark. It keeps the shark from flipping over. So when a shark flips over, because it is possible, especially in the aquarium industries, we often flip our sharks over because they actually enter a state of tonic immobility, which is kind of like a sedation state for a shark. And so out in the wild, they don't really want to do that all the time because, of course, that would not be beneficial to them. That's why those fins are super helpful for keeping them upright. Next we have the pectoral fins. Those are these side fins of the shark. So the pectoral fins help keep the shark lifted in the water, or it helps dive when the sharks are going deeper in the water. You can kind of think of them as airplane wings. It's also a stabilizing factor for a shark, but it mainly helps with the lift and the diving forces. Now, the pectoral fins for some sharks can be actually used as legs as well. They'll use them to walk around the sand bed. The sharks in this tank don't really do that. However, we do have an epaulet shark species that is in the stingray hideaway tank, and they use their pectoral side fins to crawl across the bottom of the tank. And out in the wild, they're going to use that for hunting purposes. They look for their food in tide pools. And so they'll crawl across the sand and in between each tide pool. And then last but not least, the most well-known part of the shark is that tail fin. That is the caudal fin. It's its fancy name, but the caudal fin is the driving force for the shark. It is its powerhouse in how fast or slow it swims. Here in this tank, we have some very slow swimming sharks. Our sand tiger sharks, which are that big one again. The sand tiger sharks have an average swimming speed of about 1 mile per hour. So really slow, gentle giants as I like to call them. But does anybody know or have heard of the fastest swimming shark in the world? Mako sharks, yes. The short fin mako shark is the fastest. It can swim up to 45 miles per hour. So imagine how fast you swim, or maybe not swim, but you drive on a highway. That's as fast as that shark is swimming. And the other fun thing about the tail of the shark is also what gives them the force to jump out of the water, which is super cool to see, of course. And it's well known for those great whites, and I think the makos jump out as well. Next, we're going to talk about the shark skin. And for the shark skin, I'm going to need a couple of volunteers, up to 3. Got one in the back there, perfect. Got one right here. Do I have one more? All right, right here in the center. So for this, I'm going to need you guys to come up here in the center, and you're going to stick your hands in each hole and tell me what you feel. Nothing is alive in the holes. All right, so what do you feel? Or just describe it. Kind of silky, all right. What's this middle one? Kind of soft, perfect. Sandpaper feeling, now switch. All right, how does this one feel? Like plastic, all right. Soft. Sandpaper, and then switch one more time so you each have done each hole. This one? Plastic wrap? Kind of furry. Sandpaper, all right. Now, have any of you guys touched a shark before? All right, which one do you think the shark feels like? Like this one or like this one? So this is the correct one actually. They feel like sandpaper. So they have these special scales. It's called dermal denticles, and it means skin teeth, and that's what makes them feel like sandpaper. So thank you guys for helping me. You will have the opportunity to touch a live shark later on in the aquarium if you're interested. It's down in Shark Central. So definitely look for that. Thank you guys. All right. So like I said, dermal denticles, those are special just for sharks. They're the only ones that have those skin teeth. It is a special scale that helps reduce drag. It also protects the shark from any scratches, but its main thing is it helps reduce drag. So it makes the shark able to swim even faster. Alright, next we're going to talk about the shark's gills. So sharks are a type of fish, in case you guys weren't aware. And one of the reasons they qualify as a fish is they have gills. That is how they breathe in the water, how they get their oxygen. So this isn't just a standard goldfish. You'll notice that it only has one gill slit. It has a operculum that covers all of its gills. That's why we can only see the one opening. Now for a shark, they're a bit different. The sharks can have anywhere between 5 and 7 gill slits. So that is an automatic way that you're able to tell a shark from a fish. Is the sharks will have multiple gill slits and the fish only have one. And so most sharks just have 5. That's about the average one. Other sharks that have more than that are typically named for it. So there's a 6-gill shark, there's a 7-gill shark, and so on. And so there's some sharks that have to swim to breathe. Those are called obligate swimmers. We have 2 species of sharks in this tank that do that. That is the sandbar sharks and the black-tip reef sharks. So if they stop swimming, they can't breathe anymore, which is really unfortunate for them. But there's other sharks that were made to be able to stop swimming. You may know of nurse sharks again. They're a classic shark that people often see out in the wild. They're usually found sitting at the bottom of the ocean. And so if they weren't able to breathe, that would really not work out for them. So they have what are called sphericals. This is another thing that sharks use to breathe. So it's this little hole right behind the shark's eye. This is pictured on one of our zebra sharks. And so that little hole helps pump water through their gills, even when they're not moving. And so most sharks actually don't have to swim to breathe. They have these sphericals, and then they're able to breathe that way while they're stationary. Next, we're going to talk about that cartilage skeleton. That was one of our ones that we've heard of earlier when I was asking about what makes a shark a shark. Now, the cartilage skeleton is actually what classifies the shark also as an elasmobranch. That's the class of sharks and stingrays as well. And the elasmobranchs, they have fully cartilage skeletons, which means they have no bones at all. Cartilage is that same material that your ear bones are made out of and the tip of your nose. And so they are very flexible, and they have very flexible spines. So this is actually an example of one of a shark spine. We don't know what species it came from. It was donated to us. But this is a real shark spine. And that cartilage skeleton helps them use less energy because they're not having to move bones with heavy bones with muscles. Their skeleton bends more, and so they're using less energy and are, again, able to swim faster if they want to. So that's another great characteristic of the sharks that are unique to them. And last but not least, we have this fancy word. It's called Anguilla lawrencei. Has anybody heard of that word before? I see a couple of nods. So this is also unique to the sharks. It's their electroreception. So this is super cool and is super helpful for their feet. And so how it works is the sharks have all these little pores on their nose. That's all the dots on their nose. And these lead to gel-filled chambers that have a little air in them that will move based on the water movement or electricity in the water. So why this is so important is when the sharks are feeding, they'll open their mouth once they get close because they can't see. They have decent eyesight. So they're going up to the fish, they'll open their mouth, and suddenly their eyes are blocked, which is unfortunate. Their eyes are over on the side of their heads, and so when they open their mouth, their nose blocks them. And so they have these pores with the electroreception in them, so that if the fish suddenly makes a move away from the shark, then they still know which way the fish went. It also is helpful for if they're looking for food that is buried. Let's say a shark is looking for a stingray to eat or something like that, and it's buried in the sand. They're able to feel the heartbeat of the stingray, even though they can't see it. So this is super cool, and again, unique to sharks. So I've talked a lot about what makes a shark today. I hope you've learned something new. But sharks are a keystone species for our environment. What a keystone species is a species that if you move it out of the environment collapses, or the ecosystem collapses. So there's a lot of different keystone species, and sharks are one of them as a whole. And so basically, to describe this, we'll use a classic food chain example. For the sharks, they're the apex predators. We all have heard this before. They eat the tuna in this scenario, and then the tuna eat the mackerel, and the mackerel eat the smaller fishes. If the shark is removed, there's nothing eating the tuna, and the tuna overpopulate and are eating too many mackerel, and then nothing's eating the smaller fishes, and it all gets out of whack. And so that's why they're considered the keystone species, and they're super important for our environment. There's a couple of ways that sharks are depleting out in the environment. Many species of sharks are considered endangered or very close to going extinct. And so there's a couple of reasons why for this. The main one is overfishing. I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but overfishing is a big problem for sharks for two reasons. First, the overfishing is typically done with trawl nets. And trawl nets are those huge nets that are pulled off a boat that are just scooping up everything in its path. The trawl nets will scoop up, like I said, everything, all the fish, and potential sharks as well, anything that's in the way. So when the shark is potentially scooped up by that trawl net, it doesn't always make it back in the ocean. One, it doesn't make it in time, or two, the fishermen keep it. Either one, which is not good. And so the other reason why, of course, they get stuck in the nets, that's an issue for the shark, but also if they're just catching too many fish, they don't have anything to eat. That's not healthy. And so overfishing is a huge issue for our sharks, and there is a way that you guys can help with that even up here in Kentucky. Because of course we are not anywhere near the ocean, but one of the main ways you guys can help is actually through a program called the Seafood Watch. So the Seafood Watch was created by the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and this watch is an app and also is a website. But basically why it's helpful is it tells you whether the fish was sourced sustainably. So let's say you want to buy tilapia over at the Kroger or something like that, and you're trying to see if that fish was sourced sustainably or not, you can check the Seafood Watch and you'll know that information. And basically the goal of this is that you're supporting the ones that are sourced sustainably. That way the ones that are overfished just fizzle out. Because then as the economics works, if you're not supporting the one company, it's just going to go away. And so that's our goal with the Seafood Watch, and we highly recommend you guys use that. You also are helping the sharks just by learning about them here at the aquarium. So I thank you guys for that, and I thank you guys for joining me for my Shark Talk. If you have any more questions about our sharks or want to come up and do this little experiment with me, feel free to come on up. That is the end of my shark presentation. Thank you all for listening.